I wanted to be a part of this film for many, many reasons. One of which, as an actor, to play a part like this was really fun. But really, the main reason I think most of us would be a part of a movie like this is that he's just the highest level of the definition of artist. I think that animation now is such an incredible medium, and there's so much going on, but there's no one doing animation quite like him. It's more like a moving Renoir painting or something. So to me, he's been so inspiring, and his films have been so inspiring that to me, it's one of those things that as soon as they called me about this, before they had finished even what the title of the movie was, I was like, yes. The Wind Rises is about a lot of things, but mostly it's about a character named Jiro. I play Honjo, who's his good friend, and they're both engineers, and they design aircraft. But from a young age, there was this obsession slash connection to flight and aircraft that Jiro had. And then when he meets Honjo later in his life, they both have this same love, but there's something very, very special about Jiro's connection to aircraft, and that is basically the story that's sort of pulling you through the main meat of the movie. But really, on the sides of it, it's all this stuff that's happening in Japan and the history of Japan. I think at the time, flight was such an incredibly enigmatic thing that people had just discovered it. People were finding, there were new things happening in the world of plane design as it happened, like flushed rivets and things like that were really blowing people's minds. And the idea that passengers could be taken on airplanes was a huge deal back then. That was something that would never be imagined back then. They had fuel tanks in the wings. There were all sorts of things they had passages in the wings. You could actually walk down hallways in the wings, and sitting on these sort of observation decks as it flew. It was more of a exciting ride than it was anything practical. So I think back then it's so easy to see why people like Honjo and Jiro would be so enamored with the idea of designing planes. Joe, I think, is one of the best actors working, period. And the reason why is there's many reasons, but one of the things is he's pretty fearless, and he does things on his own terms and the way he wants to do them. And even if you didn't know that watching the movie, it comes off the screen. I think that his confidence in what he does and his willingness to try new things and do new things, he's never allowed any movie or group of people to push him to do a certain character and repeat that character. He's always trying to reinvent himself. And I think that sort of courage is really, something that is very reminiscent of, the 70s actors and movies, and that sort of flag flying is very rarely done anymore. So I think he's one of our greats that's keeping that sort of flag alive. This is a family affair. This is one of the most rare things. I don't know if I've ever. It's like the Von Trapp family doing a movie together. Yes, I did this movie with my wife, which was awesome. I knew that I was there when she was offered the part. I was offered the part first, and that was really exciting. And it's fun to do anything together. It's definitely the first thing we've done together, so that's really interesting. Although it still leaves room for a live action thing that will actually act with each other. But on top of that was Stanley Tucci was in the movie, and he is now my new brother-in-law, which is still totally bizarre and hard to process because, I mean, I'm a fan of his in every single way. Miyazaki's animation is more like a moving painting. There's something very visceral and emotional that you see in his work and versus other work, and I think there's many, many reasons for that. But one of the reasons I think is that you do see the human, work that went into that. So there are tiny flaws. There are, it feels a lot more raw in a way that you can connect to. It's actually an aesthetic that I think makes you feel a very specific way that you wouldn't feel in other animation. And I think sometimes animation, just like a really, really high definition photo, makes you feel one way rather than a shot on a Leica 1950 photo does. There's an emotional connection that you have to images, which I think is amazing. All of Miyazaki's movies have this incredible ability to show you great hope with a huge layer of reality wrapped around it. That it's not this fairy tale in a way that is unattainable. He has this level of reality that is not always necessarily a happy moment, but the characters will always experience things in a real way that will allow the audience to feel like they're going through something very similarly. So to me, it's such a great thing to do because it allows your audience to see themselves in the movie, and it's also makes it much more emotional.